Okay.
Oh, like just chicken.
Chapter 77. That's airflow sensors. Okay, this one's a small chapter. This one we'll take one step this. Oxygen sensors is actually pretty big, chapter 78. We'll probably save 78 for next week. We'll have plenty of time. We only got to go to 90, so we've been making pretty good progress, so we'll be fine as far as enough time.
Those short chapters really help out.
Yeah, they do, right? Okay. Let's see what we find out about a mass airflow sensor. First of all, where are you going to find it? If you open the hood on your car and somebody said, where's the mass airflow sensor on it, where would it be?
Like right on top of the.
Next to the throttle.
Right before it?
Somewhere between your air filter and the throttle body, okay? Somewhere in there. Sometimes in the air filter housing, sometimes it's in the duct between them, the hose, okay? Somewhere in there. It's going to go through different types, which we don't have to worry too much about, you know, as far as how they work. We get into technical stuff in this class, but a lot of that stuff, I'm not really worried about you remembering because it's not really relevant. Okay? And it's not going to help you in your job. Okay? It's not going to help do you any good to know the intricate workings of a mass airflow.
Yeah, this is really short. It's like 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
How soon do we get tools after we graduate?
How soon do you get what?
Tools after we graduate?
Get hired.
As soon as you are employed, you get them. So you guys are going to go to work in Cadillac, you said? Maybe, possibly?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing onboarding this week.
If you what?
We're doing onboarding this week.
What's that?
Like all the paperwork.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. You might as well get a head start on it if they've already made you the offer, right? Okay, so as soon as they say you're good, you can have them and they're at the dealer. So for you, it's easy. Just all the tools are at the Cadillac dealer.
If you're already working.
What if you're already working at the dealership? Okay, well, if you're gonna go somewhere else, it would be helpful if you, it's up to you if you want it now or when you go. That would just mean you would have to move them twice. So, however you wanna do it. Uses for how the PCM uses a mass airflow sensor list. Methods that can be used to test it. Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, you never answered my question the other day. Would I be able to, like, after I do the application, would I be able to go pick them up and take them the same
Mhm.
day, or?
Mm-hmm. Sure. If you've already, if you know you're gonna be clean, passing the background test, because you gotta go through the same, requirements. If you were a new hire somewhere, anywhere, you still have to go through all of that stuff, okay? So just because you went through the class doesn't mean you're automatically in, you know? If you don't study for the drug test and you fail it or something like that, then, you know, obviously you're not gonna
Did
get
you
hired.
just say study for a drug test?
I was hoping somebody would catch that.
I just think it is don't be judged.
You what?
I just think it is don't be judged.
You know, I'm curious how that works here in Nevada with it being legal. How, because when they legalized it in Jersey, I was already working, so I didn't, you know. But here, I'm like, how do they?
I know, I think it's pretty stupid to be honest with you, but,
Like,
Anything that has to deal with machinery?
so the thing is,
but how
it
do
was
they
legalized
do that?
for certain purposes. And those
Recreational.
purposes were not recreational, even though I'm not getting into that. Let's just say, if you can't pass a drug test, you're not going to work
Yeah.
anywhere in this town.
Right, but it's like, how do people, I don't,
Just don't do it before your drug test.
no, but I'm just like,
How about not at all?
I don't know how they, I don't know.
It
Yeah.
depends on the job, but like, say for example, like,
The same way with the background, if you can't pass the background test or check, they're not gonna hire you, because Finley's pretty strict about that. They don't want, you know, they don't want bad people kind of thing, right? You gotta be a good person, you gotta be clean, you gotta be reliable, you gotta be, you know, dependable, you know, there's a lot of deadbeats out there, they don't want that.
And a lot of companies do, especially with this type of industry, they'll do like a surprise test, or if you get
Yeah,
injured, it's an
I'll tell you
automatic
something
drug
right
test
now,
if
if
you're
when
injured.
you go to work in one of the dealerships, if you were working on something and you hurt yourself,
That's an automatic drug test.
it is. I don't care if you cut your finger,
That's,
which is gonna happen.
yeah.
If you report it, they're gonna send you straight to get a drug test. Don't take it personally, it's just policy.
Yeah.
You know, I've never done that stuff, and one time I was walking through the dealer I was working at, and the door was coming down, I didn't realize it. The door hit me in the head, I was like, whoa. I mean, I was okay, the service manager said, "Get your ass down there and get a drug test."
Yeah.
Okay, fine, not gonna be offended. Never failed a drug test in my life, because I never did. So, don't take it personally, it's policy, okay?
People that take it personally do it, that's all.
What's that?
People that argue and say stuff like that, that's they do it, that's all. People that take it to offense, it's like, why are you sitting me taking it, you know, that's all. That's why I take it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't do it, what do you got to worry about? And if you do, you're risking your job, so it's on you.
You know, like I had an accident at my last place, and I was cleaning up, and I moved fast, and I turned around and bam, hit my head right on the pole. No, it was there, it's the lift pole. It's always there, it's an inanimate object, but bam, cracked it open too. Like gotta, you know, busted, and it was, I was just cleaning up. Drug test. Okay.
I tell you, probably one of the worst things that happened, although it ended up not being very bad, but when I was working at one of the Chevy dealers, one of the salesmen took a Camaro out, or no, it was a Corvette. It was a Corvette. It had one of those big carbon fiber splitters on the front of it, right? Like this high off the ground. Well, the salesman hit a parking block with it and cracked it, and it just kind of splintered it, and it had some pretty gnarly sword coming out of it, right? So I was underneath this thing replacing it, and I turned my head like that when I did. One of those knife pieces of carbon fiber went right into my head, and I mean, it was literally squirting blood like a fountain out of my head. And I was like, I thought I was gonna die before they got me somewhere, because I was losing blood so fast. And I don't know how, but I managed to get it stopped. I didn't even go to the doctor. Go in the bathroom, and I mean, you could follow, you could find me by the trail of blood. It was bad.
Really?
But I don't know how, but I managed to get it stopped. But I never even went to get it looked at, because I got it stopped, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm okay. But same thing. I'm sitting there with a big thing on my head, you know, getting a drug test. I'm like, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to do it.
Yeah, the head bleeds the most.
Oh man.
It bleeds the most.
I've never cut myself to the point where I was watching. It was just kind of go.
Yeah, yeah, the head,
Oh, it was horrible.
yeah.
It was horrible. Okay. On the mass airflow sensor, a purpose and function of the sensor is to measure the amount of air entering the engine. Why does it need to know how much air is entering the engine? There's no one sensor that has authority over everything. We're gonna look at this one, and we don't care about the other ones, okay? It's all of the inputs together to make the decision on how much fuel the engine's gonna need, okay? Map sensor, mass airflow, coolant temperature, intake air temperature, whatever it is, okay? Engine speed. But this one's job is just to measure the amount of air entering the engine, and also the air temperature. Remember I said older engines will have a separate intake air temperature sensor in the air intake somewhere. Most of them are incorporated in the mass airflow sensor now, so it also measures the temperature of the air, okay? Two types, well, actually there's a few, the hot film and the hot wire, we don't worry too much about those. If you notice, this is the electrical connector. Your wires to the mass airflow sensor, your wires to the intake air temperature sensor because it's inside of it now, okay? It's all one, made it simpler that way. Probably should have done that to start with, but when they first came out with them, they couldn't even figure out how to make a mass airflow sensor that wouldn't fail, so they certainly weren't gonna complicate it. Sensing wire in a hot wire mass airflow sensor. So what that means is the PCM will heat that wire to a certain temperature, and then based on the temperature of the wire, it can tell how much air is entering the engine by how much it cools it down. Okay, some of them use ultrasonic waves to detect vortexes that are produced, and some use a pressure type. They use a pressure sensor. Again, more technical stuff that tells you how it works. This really isn't going to help you in your job, so we're not going to get too crazy with it. But they do put out a frequency as well, which we can probably look at that on the scan tool as well. The PCM will use the information from that sensor for the following purposes. Used to determine the amount of fuel needed and base pulse width numbers. That's for the injectors, okay? Base pulse width number, how long is the injector going to stay open? Another thing I'll bring up real quick, on the injectors with the pulse width, okay? An injector is never opened part way, okay? Every time that injector is turned on, it opens all the way and then it closes, okay? There's no partial opening on it. So let's say you have a pulse width in milliseconds on an injector that equals, say, a 50% duty cycle. It doesn't mean the injector is ever halfway open, okay? It's just half the time, okay? Airflow sensors back up the throttle position sensor in the event of a lost signal or inaccurate throttle position sensor signal. And again, we've talked about that before, the sensors all communicate with PCM, they back each other up. So one of the things you could look at is that, say, the throttle position said 4 volts, but the airflow didn't coincide with that. The PCM is going to assume that the mass airflow sensor is bad or giving a bad signal, okay, bad information, because it doesn't match a 4-volt throttle opening on the sensor, which is almost all the way, right? That airflow should be pretty significant at that point. This is no longer accurate, because I told you when they first came out with mass airflow sensors on cars, they were terrible. And you could literally have a car running in your stall, let's say, and this was a mass airflow sensor, and the engine's idling, and you could just tap on it with a screwdriver or something like that, and the engine would just stall. That was actually a legitimate test, not anymore. Okay, so don't worry about that.
All right, Ron, I'm confused a little bit here.
Oh,
I might be
imagine
getting
that.
a little ahead. I might be getting a little ahead, but it says that the mass airflow sensor output test. So you use the DMM, the digital multimeter, set to read DC volts. Can be used to check the mass sensor, right? But then it says on the digital meter tests, you use the Hertz frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So is that too, because I didn't read any further really, I didn't want to get too far ahead, but.
Okay, so depending on the sensor, sometimes the voltage output can be compared to grams per second of airflow, okay? And then your frequency is going to be different. You'll see that on the next page. Okay, false air. What is this?
the sensor is confused?
Let's say, we can use your car for an example. The 4Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody remembers looking at her car, right? You remember the patch job on the air intake from the throttle body, right? Because it was probably cracked or leaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was happening at that point? It was getting false air.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, it's getting air into the engine through that break or crack in that rubber hose,
Mhm.
right? That the mass airflow sensor doesn't know about. Because it's after.
Bypassing it.
Mhm. Okay, so, let's say this is your air intake hose. This is your throttle body. And this is your air filter, okay? Let's say your mass airflow sensor is right here. Okay? If there's a split in this hose right here, this guy doesn't know about it. So it's getting air that the mass airflow sensor can't read and doesn't know about. So that's what they call false air. There was a vehicle that used to have a common problem with that. See where it says if the engine runs well in reverse but runs terrible in forward gear, look for a crack in the air intake hose? That probably makes no sense to you, I'm guessing. And if it does, tell me. Tell me if you could figure out what they're trying to say.
If you're going forward, then air's coming in. If you're going in reverse, you know, it's not coming in directly as you're driving forward.
Okay. Just so you know, what they're getting at is the car can be sitting still during this test. In fact, it will do that. I've seen this many times. Probably doesn't make sense, but it will in a minute, hopefully. Let me see what I can use for an example here. Probably nothing. Probably nothing. Do I have something that would work for that? Okay. This is gonna be pretty lame, but I'm gonna use it anyway. Okay. This is your air intake hose, okay? This is your air filter over here, right? Throttle body over here. Here's your air intake hose, okay? Some of them kind of look like that, only quite a bit bigger, right? So as you drive, the engine, when you're driving, the engine torques a certain direction, right? Every time you hit the throttle, that engine moves toward the passenger side of the car, okay? If it's front wheel drive, it moves toward the front car, okay? So here's what happens. After 100 years of it doing this, every time the engine moves, it creates a crack right here. So when you accelerate, it opens that crack up and brings false air into the engine, and it runs crappy. If you put it in reverse, now this goes the other way and it closes that crack up. And it runs okay in reverse, but not in forward. That make sense?
Yes.
Forward, open, reverse, close.
Yeah, so the engine's torquing this way, and it's been doing it forever, because every time you touch the throttle, it moves this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually it created a crack right here, and it brought in air that's not supposed to be there. If you put it in reverse, the engine torques the other way, closes that crack up, and the engine runs okay.
Chris, I have a question. So the intake is designed for it to have a specific amount of air to go into it, right? Or it's just like, so when you drive, all the air goes into the intake.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a hole, what's the difference between the air just going in and the whole air just going in again?
Okay. The answer to your question lies right here in what we're talking about. The mass airflow sensor. All the air entering the engine comes in right through here,
Yeah.
okay? All of it. It's metered by the mass airflow sensor, right? So, like I said a minute ago, stay. If this was your air intake hose, and this was your throttle body over here, and this was your air filter, and here was your sensor, right? This is the way the air is going, right? So it all comes into the air filter. This measures how much air is coming in, and everybody's happy. But you got a crack right here. So air is getting in here that doesn't see. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So now, it's just measuring this air, not this air, because it doesn't know about it. It's like somebody being behind you. You can't see them, right? You can't see that air back there. You can only see what's in front of it, kind of, okay? That make sense? Okay.
So why don't they put the mass airflow sensor like more closer to the throttle?
Some do.
Yeah,
Like really, not really close, but good on.
they are in different locations, but yeah, sometimes they do get closer. I should have just used this because this is the actual example of what's going on in that. So here's your intake hose, right? Here's a split in it. This is where the air is getting in that the mass airflow sensor doesn't see, because you can see in this picture, this is actually the mass airflow sensor. It's actually on the air filter housing.
Mhm.
So anything leaking here. You remember you even told that story.
Mine was the
Yeah, this hose was off,
yeah.
right? Remember the one you said from the valve cover to here was off? You showed it to us on your car, right? So what happens when that hose is off? It was bringing air in here that the sensor didn't see.
Mhm.
That's why the car ran like crap, or the check engine light came on, okay? Yeah. Okay. Forget the tap test. Master flow, just output digital meter, whatever, scan tool. Contamination, they have a sensing wire on them. They can get contaminated. If they do, the car's gonna run crappy, okay? This was actually a common problem. Even spider webs, cars didn't get driven much like Charles Mercedes. Notice how I like to pick on people. Okay.
And most of the time it just goes like this.
I know, it's okay. Okay, if dirt, oil, even spider web, whatever, it gets on the sensing wire of the mass airflow sensor, it can cause a problem, okay? We had a problem a while back where people were changing their air filters on their car. They would go to the parts store or wherever and buy a K&N air filter because they say, you get more power, right? Everybody's familiar with K&N air filters? Kind of, sort of? No? Very popular aftermarket air filter. Sometimes they come with oil. Spray a little oil on it, catches more dirt, right?
Wait, so how often do you have to change that one?
On a K&N filter,
Yeah.
you never have to change them.
Okay.
That's one of the advantages.
Are those the ones that you
You
just
just,
rinse
you
off?
just wash them.
I had one of those in in my Malibu,
Mhm.
and a mechanic stole it out. They stole it and replaced it with the crappy paper one.
Well,
That
they
was
might have done it
expensive.
because it was causing a problem on the mass airflow
No,
sensor.
because I didn't have it. No, I spent a lot of money.
Oh,
on
so
that.
you didn't bring it in for a drivability
No, I
problem?
brought it in for
Oh,
a
okay.
regular oil change,
And they stole
and they
it?
stole it.
Oh, that's not good.
No, because I didn't know which mechanic did it.
Okay, so here's what happened. Put oil on the filter, right? Because sometimes they'll tell you, most of them were for like off-road use, right? You get, there's a lot of dirt and crap, right, when you're driving off-road. So put a little oil on the filter, it catches more dirt, keeps the engine cleaner, right? Well, people were oiling the filters and eventually it would draw a little bit of that oil through the filter and it would get on the sensing wire of the mass airflow sensor and all of a sudden the vehicle would run like crap. And then you'd tell the person that the $100 air filter they just bought is causing the problem. They weren't very happy about that. Okay. Scope,
Open ones.
I'm sorry.
The open ones, people that get the custom ones.
Uh-huh.
The custom thing that has an open filter,
Mhm.
no cover, it's open.
Mhm.
How often do you change those? Cause it's like, those are mostly for like, not design purposes, like hearing purposes, like you hear like the.
You might have to change those a little bit more often, but
It's just the front, you don't really got to
Yeah,
change the whole thing.
right,
Just
yeah.
Screw it back on.
yeah. Again, it's just, you know, whenever it gets dirty, I can't honestly tell you how often you have to change it, but depends on the driving conditions, where you drive, where you live. You know, if you live on a dirt road, obviously, you have to change it more often, but. All right, digital scope or a digital storage scope you can use to monitor a waveform for a mass airflow sensor. You could look at the pattern on a scan tool if you wanted to do that. So what you're going to look for is a consistent pattern that changes in frequency as the engine speed is increased. Kind of like that. Idle speed 2600 hertz, that's about right. Incorrect amount of area in the engine, okay. All right, do the quiz real quick and then we'll, actually, just go ahead and do these, we'll go over them as a class after lunch then. Is this the right one? Say 74? 77, yeah.
7.
So what's for lunch, Tiffany?
I think we might do barbecue,
See?
because he's the only one that said anything, everybody else is like they're deaf. I know I'm loud, so you have to be able to hear me.
Well. I'll be going across the street to Del Taco.
I might end up doing that, I don't know.
It's close.
I kind of want barbecue, but I might take the barbecue from the road.
Yeah, there you go. Just so you know, there's no quiz B for this chapter. I kept clicking on it, it was taking me to a blank page, and I'm like, what's wrong? Yeah, okay, no, there's no quiz B for this chapter. There's a little sticky note in the book too that tells me I keep forgetting. Just A, okay. Going to be a couple of code questions that, again, there should be a chart in the book you can use, which is on 901. All right, as soon as you guys are done, we can go ahead and break for lunch, so as soon as you get done with that. Feel free to take off. We'll see you back here at 12:30.
We're not going nowhere?
We'll do it when we get back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said when you're done with it, just go ahead and break for lunch, so we'll go over them when we get back.